So the 3-month lacto fermentation process and the fantastic result that I got with the sauce is just unbelievable. Flame roasted the peppers on this. It's absolutely an amazing sauce, dude. 3-month lacto fermentation process. So I'm gonna start with that, and then we'll more with the charcoal grill, and then we'll make the sauce. Let's get it.
First, I'm going to go over the fermentation process itself. If you're familiar with the process already, then go ahead and click the timestamp to skip ahead. So I harvested these beautiful red habaneros right off of my plant earlier this morning. On top of the red habaneros, I'm going to put in 5 garlic cloves as well. Other ingredients you're going to need: filtered water and fine sea salt. I'm going to go for the cleanest flavor that I possibly can. That's why I go with filtered water and fine sea salt that is non-iodized. It doesn't have any preservatives and no anti-caking agents. That's not to say that you can't ferment with those. I am, however, going for the cleanest flavor possible. On top of my freshly harvested habaneros, I also picked right off my plant some serrano peppers, I have cayenne peppers, and a handful of tabasco. I'm yanking the stems off of the peppers, and I'm just going to give them peppers a rough chop. It's always a good idea to cut the peppers up into smaller pieces and or slice them in half. That way you don't get any air pockets that might get trapped during the fermentation process when they're sitting in the brine. As far as the habaneros, I'm just going to cut these in half, and as I cut the peppers in half, I'm expecting the seeds and the placenta make sure everything is looking nice and fresh and not rotten. Any rotten peppers are to get discarded. So my preferred method for fermentation is the Noma guide to fermentation. To me, it just makes the most sense. So with a scale set the grams, I place an empty mason jar on the scale, zeroed out, and then add the ingredient. There are many ways to go about fermentation, so use whatever method you prefer. Once all the ingredients are in, that's all the peppers and the garlic, you go in with the filtered water. If you don't have filtered water, you can buy a bottle of spring water. And you want to fill the water level up just to the bottom of the neck of that jar. Now you want to take note of that weight. 730 grams, multiply that by 2.5%, and you end up with 18.25 grams. If your scale doesn't read decimal points, round to the nearest whole number. Now you want to pour a little bit of that water out into a separate bowl. Next, you want to place a small dish onto the scale, zeroed out, and pour in that calculated amount of salt, which is 18 grams in this example.
I like using fine sea salt that's not iodized, no anti-caking agents, no preservatives, nothing like that. I mean, you can ferment with iodized salt and salt that has caking agents in it. This is just my preferred salt to use because it has the cleanest flavor, right? So 18 grams of fine sea salt goes into that water, whisk to dissolve the salt. Fine sea salt dissolves the best in the water. I mean, you could use kosher salt too, but it's harder to dissolve. Glass dish, put your jar in. That's kind of catch any kind of overspill that might happen.
Now you want to pour that brine into the jar.
Place your fermentation weight in there, and you just want the brine to cover the ingredients. Pretty simple. This is kind of a cool lid. You could get this at like Amazon or Walmart, something like that. It has a little rubber flap on it that is going to help this gas release as it's being created during the fermentation process. So all you really need to do is thread that lid on there and then just let this sit at room temperature away from direct sunlight. I have a spot in my pantry that stays consistent temperature wise, 68 to 75 degrees, no matter what season I'm in, right? Before moving forward with the sauce making process, I want to check the pH on this first, make sure it's safe to keep moving forward. I'm looking for a pH less than 4.6 for it to be safe. Digital pH meters are much more accurate than the litmus papers. I want the pH to be slightly lower, so I'm going to add some vinegar to it when we process the sauce. I'm going to throw these peppers on the barbecue, so I want to strain this out. We're going to use the brine to blend it later, so don't throw it away. Most of these are red habaneros, but I did throw in some of my ripened serrano peppers and some of my tabasco peppers too. Being that this is going to be a flame roasted sauce, I'm putting the ingredients on a perforated pan. This is just to catch any kind of residual liquid. I'm going to give it about a 1/4 cup apple cider vinegar too. It's going to give the sauce flavor and lower that pH.
Now the charcoal is nice and warmed up and ashed over. I put on a couple splits of wood over the charcoal and wait for the wood to burn clean. Next step, which is to put these peppers onto the rack directly over the flames. I want these flames to really kiss the peppers and give them a nice beautiful flavoring on the outside, which includes giving the peppers a nice char. Every few seconds or so, I'm agitating the ingredients and stirring them around, making sure that they're all evenly getting kissed by those flames. Once all the ingredients have a nice even char on them, move the pan just to the side of the flames and close the lid on the grill. This is to cook the ingredients the rest of the way through. If they're looking like they need to be flipped over and turned, then go ahead and do so. This cooking process can take anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes depending on how hot you have your grill, right? Since I'm keeping the garlic cloves whole, they're going to take the longest to cook. They have a beautiful char on it, beautiful caramelization at this point in time, but they still do need a couple more minutes to cook. Once the garlic cloves have cooked all the way through and are nice and soft, I'm going to go ahead and heat the brine up with the peppers so that I can meld all those beautiful flavors. This is one of those recipes that I'm fermenting for flavor and not to keep those live active cultures. Now that all the ingredients are in the pot, I'm closing the lid and letting this rip at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Nice clean smoke coming out of that stack, and we're getting beautiful flavor. So I had to move this pot directly over the coals because I want to get this brine essentially up to a boil for about 10 minutes. After this point in time, all those ingredients should be nice and cooked through, nice and soft and ready to blend. Whenever working with hot peppers, they're going to release a lot of fumes whenever you simmer the hot liquid like this. Therefore, it is very beneficial that I'm doing this outside. Now that we're back inside, we're going to process this sauce. Next, we put all those ingredients into a blender, preferably with a glass pitcher. The glass pitcher will not retain any previous flavors. If it's looking like there's too much liquid in the blender, then you could go ahead and pour a little bit of it out.
Start with a little bit of brine, then we could add more. But I am gonna add that apple cider vinegar to it. Blend it.
First thing, you want to be very careful when blending up a hot liquid like this. Make sure you put a lid on it and let the blender rip 45 seconds to 1 minute.
Might need to be thinned out just a little bit. That was a beautiful color on it. Man, dude, you can't get any better than that. Finally got to use my fresh habaneros off my plant. They've been sitting in that brine for 3 months, and I was just really excited for the sauce. Came out way better than I expected. I love the color on it. It has those little charred bits in it. It has a nice little deep red color to it, almost orange. You're gonna thin it out just a little bit.
I like my hot sauces to be a little bit on the thinner side. Of course, this is a personal preference, and you can have it as thick or as thin as you like.
That's smooth enough that I don't have to strain it out. Pulverize everything in there. And I kind of want to keep those little charred bits in it too. It's gorgeous. Might be a little on the thick side still. I could thin it out. I want more of that brine. That's not a problem. It smells so good. It has like a nice smoky smokiness to it. I'm gonna thin it out just a little bit and put the rest of that brine in there. That should do it. Whoa. A flavor just really pops right in your mouth. That's good. Has a decent heat to it too. Wow, that is delicious. Oof. So 3-month lacto fermentation on this was definitely a great experiment to have, and the fantastic result that I got with the sauce is just unbelievable. Flame roasted the peppers on this. You just can't beat it.